So there's a court order pausing thousands of federal layoffs. But despite that, we have the Trump administration that's full steam ahead when it comes to laying off hundreds of people this week. And these people are suddenly realizing, hey, I got to find another job. My job doesn't want me. So we've heard from the Department of Interior, HHS, and Commerce. Department of Interior, we knew about that. Late last week, there were rumors circulating, there was court documents online, and we had an understanding. They had documents stating 1,600 people. That's how many jobs they wanted to cut. What we learned yesterday is that number is actually a little bit over 2,000. So they want to cut a lot more workers from the Department of Interior. Now, what's happening over there is certain people are covered by the union plaintiff. So those individuals should not be getting RIF notices. Everybody else, probably getting a RIF notice. So it's going to be real interesting to see that you're in one office, but your buddy in the other office, they got to pack their bags. They're basically looking for another job, but you're still there. You know that your office is downsizing. At this point, you should have a realization that your office is downsizing. So there needs to be an escape plan. What do you do when you get the RIF notice? Whether it's 60 days or 30 days, what do you do next? That escape plan has to be built out. Every federal worker, no matter where you work, I don't even care if you work at ICE, which is doing great, by the way, but even if you work there, you need to have a plan so that you're not caught, on your back foot. You're not caught off guard and all of a sudden you got to scramble. There are a lot of offices being impacted in Interior, but the main one is the Office of the Secretary with close to 800 job cuts. Now, HHS, on the other hand, they gave us a little bit more information because they plan to lay off 1,000 people, really close. It's like 960, something like that. But 362 of them were protected under this court order. So they weren't able to do anything. They weren't able to proceed with the RIFs. So that means there's 362 people they want gone, but they can't get rid of them, at least not right now. Over at the Department of Commerce, they did lay off some people, but it's the same situation. It's basically the same situation in every agency. They're only doing a partial amount. Whoever is not covered by the union. Now with the union, if the union covers the agency, it doesn't matter if you're a bargaining member or not, everyone's included. It's just that in certain agencies, they have unions that have not filed that lawsuit, so they're not covered. That's the main reason they're not covered. Now, with the individuals right now, federal workers that are going into work, so these are accepted federal workers, meaning they come into work, but they do not receive a paycheck. They are relying, hopefully, on back pay. There was an agreement during the first week and a half of the shutdown that some of these individuals were allowed to telework. I know it's surprising. They were actually allowed to work from home. And the reasoning behind this is you do not want the federal worker to incur any more cost. So when they're pumping gas into their car, when they're paying toll fees, when they're putting their clothes in the dry cleaner, whatever the case may be, you're requiring them to spend more money when you know they're probably not going to receive their next paycheck. So agencies had some goodwill and they were doing this. But apparently someone found out from top leadership because now they're no longer allowed to do this. So this is causing further pain in some of these agencies. Also, we have some good news because apparently the government shutdown looks like it might end this week. And you know who's saying this? It's the White House economic advisor. The guy that loves tariffs, probably a little bit more than President Trump. He advises President Trump on all matters that deal with trade and the economy. So this individual is saying that the Schumer shutdown, as they're calling it, should end this week. And why does he even care about the shutdown? Well, it makes a huge impact, a negative impact towards GDP. So he cares about that. Also, it can impact in a negative way financial markets. So he cares about that. Obviously, if the government is shut down for too long, it really hurts not just your local community economy, not just where you're living, it hurts the entire country. GDP takes a real hit into the billions of dollars. And it makes our credit rating kind of shaky. We were already downgraded a couple of times, but it makes our credit rating as a country, it makes it more unstable. So from his perspective, one of the big barriers to getting the government reopened was the No Kings protest that just happened last weekend. He said that there were Democrat senators that were saying we should not now this is all, hearsay. This is a rumor. I mean, who knows if this is true? But apparently allegedly there were some senators that were saying we should not reopen the government during the No Kings protest because of the fact that the government is shut down during the No Kings protest. That would further energize people to take to the streets and to, be unhappy and protest against President Trump. Is that true? Who can say? Nobody really knows. But this week, a lot of people are saying Chuck Schumer might reduce his demands, or he might just come clean and say, hey, I'll just sign whatever continuing resolution because the pain is too painful for my constituents. Look over at Maryland. The governor of Maryland said, hey, all my constituents, federal workers that are my constituents that voted for me, they want the shutdown to end by, basically by any means necessary. Whether you get the healthcare subsidies or not, they want the government shutdown to end. You have to remember that federal workers, by and large, almost all federal workers, they do not benefit from the subsidies, from the Affordable Care Act, because they're not using the Affordable Care Act. They're using insurance from another provider. So for them, it might not matter. Now, some people are saying, regardless of what happens, the premiums are still going up. Partly, part of the reason for that is inflation and medical costs. Now, think about this. Even if the continuing resolution gets signed, let's say it gets signed this week, next week, they figure it out in the Senate and they're able to pass something. They are able to fund the government. The current continuing resolution, it expires like towards the end of November. So what you're signing is essentially just the funding of the federal government for 4 weeks. That's pretty much it. So a lot of people are saying, hey, they're going to have to rewrite it. We need to be funded at least until, January 2026 or maybe February 2026. But you can't have this huge point of contention and have everybody come together and you're signing something for 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to have to do it again just in a few weeks. So another thing is right now we have a lot of federal workers that are worried about their use or lose leave. So as you probably know, you can only carry 30 days into the new year. Any days that you have past that, you have to calculate for the hours, but any days that you have past 30, you end up losing. If you scheduled your leave before the government shut down, you should be fine. But if not, there is an option where the agency they extend the period of time, meaning that you don't lose your leave on January 1st. They extend it. So it's not something that the agency is obligated to do, but if you have a federal agency, if you have leadership in that agency that's willing to work with you, you have to have that conversation. You have to start talking about that. If you did not submit your leave and you will lose some on January 1st, you need to talk about the extension possibility. Because in some situations, when they extend it, you have to use it like within 2 years. So you still have time to use it. So that's something to keep in mind. But when it comes to these new leave policies, if you want to know a little bit more about that, taking 1 day of leave every 2 weeks, if you're making that the ceiling, if that's the limit, that really restrains you. It really restricts you when you get sick, when your family members get sick. Let's say you have kids. Let's say you have 2 or 3 kids, right? And you can't control when they get sick. One gets sick, and then there's a delay between one getting sick and the next one getting sick. And then the third one gets sick. And then you get sick. And the whole thing is taking like 6 weeks. And you have to periodically schedule these doctor appointments that were more feasible when you were able to telework, when you were able to have remote work. You could do it because to take the doctor office was probably closer to your house than it is to your federal building's location in a lot of situations. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.